Hello, my name is Bob Ganzak. Welcome to Motivation U, the podcast. Hello, my name is Bob Ganzak, and welcome to Motivation U, the podcast, coming to you live from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, right in here inside the Coach's Podcast Room. And today we have Pizza Bill.
All right.
Did I get that right?
You did good.
I can say that.
Yeah, all right.
We are going to talk about leadership. We're going to talk about things that have happened here in Gainesville and maybe some of our childhood that kind of crossed over that we really didn't know each other as we passed through that. But again, this program is always about leadership. It's always about somebody's leadership journey and how they got to where they are and what is the advice that they can share with you on the things that they've learned in their leadership time. And Bill, I will say that my mind has taken a left turn after listening to you and Freddie talk.
Okay.
Now, what were the years? Now, Freddie Wiebe was a franchisee for Domino's Pizza for years here in Gainesville. Very successful individual. Bill was a franchisee for Pizza Hut.
Right.
For many years, very successful. And those years crossed paths. So the two of them competed with each other. And you could sit and listen to them talk about phone numbers for hours and how they got that. Yet, what was it like competing on a college campus back in the heyday of Florida sports and owning a franchise?
Well, I competed with everybody, not just Domino's. And Domino's was clearly powerful in the college. We had a local chain called Five Star that had 3 restaurants, and one of them was open 24 hours. Freddie had the store that competed or delivered to the college. It was open at 4 o'clock. I closed at 2. Now, I did some studies, and there was enough business to stay open till 4 o'clock. And so I challenged my management team. I was out at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning looking at how many deliveries that Freddie did, and I said, we need to be open. Unfortunately, because I was renting a POS system from corporate America, they shut my computers down before 4 o'clock. And so all the stores in corporate Pizza Hut closed at 2 o'clock, and this is across the planet. If you didn't close your books by 3:45, they did what was called a forced close, and they closed your bookwork, they closed down your computers. So I was able to stay open until 3 o'clock. So again, I was competing with Freddie for the college kids, but also I was competing with Papa John's, competing with Five Star, competing with Domino's, competing with Burger King down the street. Because if you, at those times, we had a thing called a Mini Mint. It was a magazine where just about every competitor or direct or indirect was in this book, and you could be ordering a pizza from Pizza Hut, and if they put you on hold, they're waiting on hold, and they find another coupon from Papa John's that's 50% better, they'd hang up and call Papa John's. And so you really had to be, you weren't really competing against Domino's or Papa John's, you were competing against your own standards. how can you execute those standards so that you can grow your business profitable? And that was the challenge. So while I did compete against Freddie, my main focus was how do we do better internally? How can we be the best that we can be? And that was how I seen that. Now again, we crossed paths. We competed in the marketplace, but both of us were trying to just be better at what we're doing.
What years were you a franchisee?
Okay, so I moved here in 1996, and at that point I had been with corporate Pizza Hut for 27 years. So I like to say I was a corporate executive, and I went into an indentured servant. Because when I was running, prior to being here in Gainesville, I was in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I was running 84 Pizza Huts.
Wow.
And I had stores in Tennessee, I had 21 stores in North Alabama, and I had 9 stores in northern Georgia. And so when I came here, I went from running 84 to running 8. When I ran 84, I had a secretary, a training manager, an HR, finance, and a marketing person. When I came here, it was me and my wife. And my wife did everything in the back of the house. She did the books, the banking, the P&L, the bill paying, payroll, and I did the operations, the marketing.
So you were in Chattanooga, nice corporate job, working.
Yeah.
What would make you want to give that all up and say, I'm moving to a town I've never lived in, and I'm going to...
Well, I did live here before.
Had you?
So my wife is a Florida Gator.
Oh.
So we didn't meet here, we met in Ocala. So I could talk about my wife forever. I met my wife at a Pizza Hut in Silver Springs Boulevard in Ocala. She is from Japan, but she got a scholarship to go to the University of Florida, and she graduated from the University of Florida in 1977. So I was actually here in 1976, 1977, and I had stepped down from being an area manager. I was running 6 restaurants in Buffalo, New York, and Rochester, New York, and I moved here to chase my wife. And when I came here, I went to a community college. I got a part-time job at the Pizza Hut on 13th Street, and I was courting this woman from Japan. And so I'd lived here before, but what happened was, as I mentioned to you off camera, that Pizza Hut was part of PepsiCo, and the Pizza Hut was Pizza Hut, KFC, Taco Bell, Frito-Lay, and Pepsi-Cola bottling, Pepsi-Cola sugar. And when we got a new chairman for Yum Brands, was spun off from the Pepsi and KFC, a big part of the whole strategy was to refranchise corporate stores. So when David Novak took over Yum Brands, let's say the numbers was 60-40, 60% company stores, 40% franchise stores. His total take was going to take it down to 90% franchise and 10% company stores. And so, in a sense, the corporation sold the stores that I was running to another person. So I had no job. Now, I had enough tenure with the company that said that they could move me to Philadelphia or Phoenix. I'm just using those names, Milwaukee or Madison, Wisconsin, but there was no guarantee that they weren't going to sell those stores the following year. So pretty much the marketplace was open. The corporation was selling stores to current franchisees and the new franchisees. Somebody bought the stores I was running, and because of my tenure, and because that I had 2 things they wanted, I had tenure and I had the money, they spun off the 8 restaurants in Gainesville that were at that time running from a corporate standpoint in Jacksonville. So the guy in Jacksonville was running the Jacksonville market, Lake City, Gainesville. Pizza Hut sold them to me.
So you had 8 stores here.
8 stores. So I bought 8.
Was that real estate also, or?
And actually, when I was getting into the business of buying these stores, the people I consulted with, everybody said, if you can buy the real estate, buy the real estate. And so 3 of the stores, I bought the real estate. I bought the real estate underneath the Pizza Hut in Alachua, the Pizza Hut in Chiefland, and the Pizza Hut in Archer Road. And so I own the real estate. I leased the other 5. 2 of them were red roof buildings. The other 3 were similar to Domino's. They were inline 1,600 square foot, 3 to 5 year lease properties. And
so you took over those in '96, and
yes,
the world that I always, when my son was born in '83 and my daughter in '85, and so we had a program with their schools.
Book it.
In Ocala, right?
Right, yeah.
In Ocala, because my kids grew up in Ocala, and we'd go to Pizza Hut. My mentality, maybe because of that, was always that Pizza Hut is a family sit-down restaurant.
Yeah, well, that's...
You're talking about competing in the takeout with the college kids.
Well, I mean, when Pizza Hut came to be, Pizza Hut was started in 1958. McDonald's was started in 55. So 1958, it was a dine-in business. It was a dine-in business until Domino's created the delivery business and they started in Ann Arbor, Michigan, at the University of Michigan, Tom Monahan, and they built a delivery business. Over time, pizza became ubiquitous. It became everywhere. As you said, book it. Because of the personal pan, we could put personal pan pizza in airports. When I was out west, I had the personal pan pizzas in the airport in Seattle. I had them in the Kingdom in Seattle. I had them in the Las Vegas Thomas and Mack Center in Las Vegas. So we had pizza in delivery in stadiums. We delivered pizza to schools, and schools cut them up and put them on the line. So pizza became everywhere, and the growth of the business was delivery. And so the dine-in, when Pizza Hut first started, there was no Denny's, there was no Applebee's, there was no Chili's. So fast casual grew up and took the dine-in business from pizza as Pizza Hut and Domino's continued to grow the pie in different avenues. And delivery is and continues to be the growth because people want that convenience. And now we're getting groceries delivered. Yeah. So
Uber Eats.
Uber Eats. And so you can get McDonald's delivered today. Yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, I hung out at a McDonald's that there was no such thing as a drive-through. Okay, and now people would not even recognize a McDonald's without a drive-through.
My wife and I were back in our hometown of Detroit.
Yes.
A couple of weeks ago, and we had walked to Lafayette, Coney Island. We had walked all over, and we were just so tired. And my wife said to me, "I want a Frosty," and I said, Lisa, we're staying at a hotel downtown. We don't have a vehicle, right, because we just Ubered to the hotel, walked to the Red Wings game, walked to the Lions game. We were just like no vehicle. And so I called Uber Eats first time ever, and I said, I need a large peppermint Frosty and a large chocolate Frosty, and I mean, like within 25 minutes, 30 minutes, there it is.
Yeah.
And my wife was amazed. She said it didn't even melt.
Right. Yeah.
So that competition has shifted so much.
It's changed. And again, I was in the early days. I joined Pizza Hut in 1971, and I was there when we.
What drove you to join them?
Well, it's actually funny. It's not. She was blonde and blue eyes, and her name was Barbie. She looked like a doll, and she worked at Pizza Hut. So
you got a job there.
Yeah. Well, actually. as you mentioned Detroit, and you know that we both lived and grew up in Detroit, I had a paper route when I was 14. When I was just turning 16, I ended up at the porch of a friend of mine who was delivering a pizza. And he was delivering a pizza. I was trying to collect for my newspaper, and he got me a job at a local pizzeria in Detroit. And so my entire 11th and 12th grade, I worked full-time delivering pizzas for Caserta's Pizzeria, which was a mom-and-pop's Italian-run pizzeria in Detroit. I subsequently graduated from high school and got a job at an automobile plant in Michigan, and I was a UAW worker for a year and a half, working a punch press, punching the clock, putting in my 40 or 48 hours. I was drafted during the Vietnam conflict. I got a job, a cush job in Columbia, South Carolina, and the guy I was working with was the store manager of the Pizza Hut. And he was the store manager while he was in the Army. And there was this blonde working there, and between him and the blonde, I wanted to work there. Okay, so I never got a date, but I got a job. I got a part-time job, and I never left. And so when I got out of the Army, I stayed there for 2 or 3 months. I was recruited to move to Leesburg. I moved to Leesburg, Florida. I went from Leesburg, Florida to Newport Richey, Florida, and then I was an area manager where I run 3 to 5 stores down in South Florida. I lived in Bonita Springs, and I got the good fortune to drive and supervise the Pizza Hut in Key West. So my career continued to expand and continued to grow, and one thing led to another. Eventually, after I got married, we got married in Japan. I landed in California because a connection from New York. He was running the stores in Los Angeles. I went back to work. Within 3 months, I was an area manager in San Diego, running 7 restaurants. And then in 1982, when my daughter was born, I was the district manager of the entire market of San Diego.
Wow.
And so I ran 35 stores. In 1985, when my son was born, I got promoted to region manager. I moved up to the Los Angeles area, and over time, I was in that role for 6 years, a region manager. I managed as few as 106 and as many as 206 Pizza Huts, pretty much from San Diego to Seattle. My marketplace moved and shaked. I picked up Seattle, dropped Phoenix. I picked up Las Vegas and dropped Los Angeles, but I kept two markets I kept the entire 6 years were San Francisco and Sacramento. And so I worked the West Coast for 6 years. The guy who hired me at Pizza Hut was now in Hong Kong, and he had done a deal with the Japanese. And he was now running all of Southeast Asia. And he called me up and said, Bill, I've done this deal with the Japanese, and part of the arrangement that I've made with them is that I need to have an experienced delivery person in market for a year. And Pizza Hut gave me 2 names, and let's call them Tom and Bob. And he said, do you know Tom and Bob? And I said, yeah, I know Tom and Bob. And he said, tell me about them. And I told him, and I said, yeah, they both have the experience you need. I would take Tom over Bob, but you're going to do okay with either one of them. And then I asked him more about the job. And I said, well, John, just before you leave, I can tell you I know somebody better. And they said, who's that? And I said, well, me. And I didn't think he ever wanted to leave Southern California. And so I was living in Southern California, and there's a high population of Japanese in that part of the world, and it's pretty beautiful. I did not want to leave, but to work for him again and to take my kids back to their mother's home was a blessing. Well, both Tom and Bob didn't want the job, so he had to work through the back channels because I wasn't on any list to go to international, but he wanted me and I wanted to go, so he had to get more funding because he had to raise the salary to get me, and he had to raise the cost of me moving there because he was originally going to move a single guy, and he moved a guy with moving a family and moving a family to Japan. So I lived in Japan for 5 years. I helped the Japanese grow the delivery business, and after 2 years I moved. I didn't move, but I spent more time in Korea than I did in Japan, and I helped the Koreans build the restaurant business.
What an amazing journey. Gosh.
So I pretty much worked my way out of a job.
From Hamtramck,
Yeah,
Michigan,
right.
all
Yeah,
around the world.
yeah. So some days I would,
Pizza.
yeah, pizza. And
Pizza,
so
what a
when
delivery.
when I tell people that when I say, oh, well, I was in Japan, they think I was in the Navy. I say, no, Pizza Hut. You know, well, I was in New York. Oh, no, Pizza Hut. Yeah, it was really fortunate. I mean, I will tell you that I was blessed to be around some really good people. Not only was the brand growing, but the category was growing. So, you know, we were in a growth year of the growth of Pizza Hut and the growth of dine-in business, off-premise food consumption. So there was a lot of opportunities. When I was in Korea, we couldn't build places faster because they were printing money in Korea. We were making, our volumes were 2.5 times the volume of.
Were those some American investors in there, or were they all Korean investors?
Well, originally the investor in Korea was a local guy with, he had a business partner that was actually from, I can't think of the island that Haiti's on. What's the better part of Haiti? Dominican Republic. He was from the Dominican Republic, so this guy was a venture in Korea, and unfortunately the Korean guy was cooking the books. He wasn't paying his taxes. He was audited by Pepsi, and he was told, you got to change your ways, you got to report all your earnings, you got to pay taxes, you got to pay royalties. And so the local guy had built the brand up to 30 stores. It got really big, but he actually got disenfranchised. And when that happened, there was a lot of disgruntled employees, and I was asked to come in and help smooth things over as we continued to grow the brand. So that's how I got to Korea, was this guy. And so it went from it was a hostile takeover.
What was I mean, you've come in and you did things in Japan, you did them in Las Vegas, you did them here, there, Chattanooga, everywhere. What was your magic sauce? What was the thing that you brought to the table that was slightly different or different than other people?
I communicated with the people. I asked questions. I would tell people that I was the nicest son of a bee that you want to work for. So my whole shtick was to make the people that worked for us as easy as possible. My mantra was to serve those who served our customers. And so I always looked at it that I had two sets of customers. I had internal customers and external customers. And my internal customers took care of my external customers. And so I also knew, given the time I had worked as a store manager, the time I had worked as an area manager, where I worked closely with the store manager for over 7 years, that those two positions were the toughest to manage. To run one restaurant was really hard because it's open 7 days a week, 16, 18 hours a day. And then as an area manager, usually we promoted the best store manager. The best store manager, he had his arms around his people 40 to 50 hours a week. He could see his people at all times. As an area manager, he had to influence them once a week, twice a week. He had to come in and be able to influence, and so I was always a support to the people running the business. I made sure the managers knew how to order food so they didn't run out of food, because if they ran out of food, the servers had to be the ones that said, sorry, we're out of
whatever.
Fill in the blank. They took the heat.
We have no cheese left.
Well, yeah, we didn't run out of cheese, but we used frozen cheese often, which didn't make the best pizzas because it had a higher content of water in it. But again, so the thing that I did was they knew that I had their best interest, and that's what was my success. And I will tell you another thing, and to anybody listening to that years and years you hear about people telling you to save a certain amount of money for a rainy day, and whether it's 6 weeks or 6 days or 6 months, I had a significant amount of money saved so that if they fired me, I could get another job. I could wait to get another job for 3 months or 6 months and not be pressed. So I always felt that I didn't need the job. I wanted the job. So I wasn't.
Difference there.
Huge difference, okay? And a lot of
that
times.
comes out through our pores
Yeah.
when we're interacting with other people.
Okay, and so when I interacted with corporate America, and again, at one of our meetings when I was with guys that were running 100 or 200 stores, we were around the table and we were doing the warm fuzzy, and he said, what do you appreciate about this guy? And so we were telling each other what we appreciate about each other. And I still remember this one guy said, Bill, one of the things we all appreciate about you is that we know you're the guy who's going to tell corporate America what we really feel that none of us have got enough balls to say it. Mm-hmm. And I was the guy who
would do that.
Who would do that because I knew it was right for the people down there. And I remember one time having this big argument with an HR lady, okay? She wanted this done and I didn't want it done. And she thought she came to an impasse. At the time, I was in charge of district managers, and they were in charge of area managers. So a district manager had 40 or 50 stores, and an area manager had 7 or 10. And she thought she was at an impasse when she said, well, Bill, your district managers don't have to do it. The area managers are going to do it. And I went, well, I've known that all along. They're the guys that are the most taxed. Yeah. And so we often would put it on these people, okay? Put it on these people, and I was the guy who pushed back and made sure that anything that we pushed on these store managers or area managers, that it was the right thing. And then I worked to make them competent and build a competent team so that they could execute those things that we asked them to do.
Mm-hmm. Very simplistic. I mean, it's not rocket science.
No,
I mean, I didn't have any formal training in management at all, and I always said if I ever became a sales manager, I would want to be the sales manager that I would want to work for.
Yeah.
You know? And then when I became a sales manager, I said if I ever had the opportunity to become a general manager, I would want to be the type of general manager that as a salesperson, a sales manager, a program director, or whatever, would want to work for.
Right.
And then do it.
Yeah, be the guy that you want to work for. And I had so many people that I worked for that I really respected. I mean, I really was fortunate to work with a lot of really good people. that were my mentors over time. And, the guy that hired me at Pizza Hut, we were clerk typists together in the Army, and he moved me to Florida.
Can you hold that
Sure.
thought? We're going to take a break.
Okay.
Very interesting. Pizza Bill here is talking to us about life. I mean, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about the pizza business. We're talking about life in general, which is incredible. We're coming to you live from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill inside the Coach's Podcast Room. We'll be right back.
We still hear it. The sound of victory. The joy of being part of something great. And while things may not be the same right now, we haven't gone anywhere. If you bleed orange and blue, then Meldon Law is the firm for you.
Looking for more reasons to celebrate? We have them here at Celebration Point. Enjoy some of the newest additions to our already celebratory lineup, like Dave & Buster's, Les Macarons, and Prime and Pearl. There's always a reason to celebrate. Join us anytime for any occasion. Celebration Point, where Gators come to celebrate.
Welcome back to MotivationU, the podcast, coming to you live from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. Have you had dinner here yet?
Yes, I had. Yeah, it was very good. Yeah, it was very
Great
good.
experience.
Yeah, great experience, yes.
Last Thursday, I showed up for the podcast, and Coach was sitting in that chair. So I was like, oh, I'm going to have to wait, because I usually like to get in there and sit down and talk. But Coach and Pat Dooley were taping a segment here, so
you had to wait.
I had to wait, but it's always good to see Coach
Yeah.
around here. So, Bill, we're talking about leadership and people and pizza, and let me ask you a question. When you had a difference with corporate, that maybe your philosophy, like I remember when your stores went to like buffet style. Remember that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It was what?
Well, we've had 2 or 3 different. We've been in and out of buffet. I mean,
that I think of a pizza. I think of this nice pizza that shows up, and here you were. You'd go out and scoop, and how long was it sitting there, or what? What? How did you approach those changes that corporate made in the philosophy of serving pizza? And how'd you sell it to your team?
yeah, I don't even know how to respond to that, because there were so many changes. And, like you talk about buffet, when we had buffet in the early 70s, and then we, under Art Gunther, who was our president at the time, came up with the 5-minute guarantee for personal pan pizza, and we sold it at 99 cents. It was a big hit. We cooked it ahead. We had hot holds. We had a 15-minute time frame. We made a cheese, a pepperoni, and a supreme. At that time, I was in San Diego. I was a test market, and my job was to make it work. And so because I was in San Diego, because of my experience, a lot of times I got test markets, and so my job was to make it work and figure out how to make it best or better. And that's always what I did. If I disagreed with a concept, I explained it. I explained it why from a consumer standpoint and from a team member standpoint. But again, they own the brand. They made the calls, and my job was to make it right. And
how did you sell it to your staff? How did you get that buy-in? What was
again, when you talk about buffet, that's 40 years ago, so I don't remember having any arguments about it, okay? And I mean, because when I was a store manager, we first started lunch, okay? Usually, lunch was you get ready for dinner. Not many people consumed pizza at lunch because it took too long. So the buffet was something they could come in and, one buffet, one Diet Pepsi, give them a ticket. It was really quick, and so that was a growth part of the business was buffet at lunch, because most people didn't consume pizza at lunch. It was a burger. It was even before Taco Bell. So buffet was a growth market. It wasn't hard to sell. They bonused on it. So I'd like to just share a couple stories about my experience. When I was in California and I was the region manager, I'm in a restaurant, and I used to do what I call synergy. Now, you're into Dale Carnegie. I'm really a big believer in Stephen Covey's 7 Habits, and, 1 and 1 makes 3 or more. So I would go to lunch with my family at a Pizza Hut and give some feedback. And I never would go in there with a checklist. I would write on the back of a placemat, and there was certain things that I look for, times and whatnot. And I had my daughter and son after church one day, and we were done with our salads, and I put the salad plates on the end, and I was writing stuff, and when the server came and picked up the salad plates, my daughter said to me, she said, 6 times, Pops. And I said, what? And she says, well, there was 6 opportunities for somebody to pick up those plates before the server did. And she was 9. And so I was creating a monster because she was living the pizza business, the service business. So she counted how many times people came by that could have taken those plates, and that's called pre-bussing. So now my daughter is a manager at Ruth Chris, which is a fine dining in Orlando, and she's got a saying that says, Pops, if you can't change the people around you, change the people around you. And I had to think about that for a minute. It was like, people ain't going to change, and if they're not going to do what you want them to do, get some new people.
Get some other people.
Get some people that need to be here. And so
people have got to want to change.
Yeah. Well, they got to see a reason why, and that's one of the things that when I talk about dealing with people, I would never say that I had employees. They were team members. Yeah. Now, some places call them associates. I use the term team member, and I used to say an employee does what you say, a team member does what's right, and your job is to teach them what's right. And there's a saying in our business is hire for attitude, train for skill. If you got the right attitude, you can teach them how to do this stuff because it's not rocket scientists. My buddy Kelton over here, he's got the right attitude. They can teach him the skill set. And so he's been at Sonny's for how long, Kelton? 3 years?
Almost 3 years.
Yeah, so, and he's a valuable team member of Sonny's. And so that's always been my deal is internal customers, external customers, these are my team members. I'm going to do whatever I can to help them do what I need them to do to satisfy my external customers.
I was in the broadcasting industry for 30 years.
Yeah.
And that was the way that we looked upon our radio stations. Hire talented people, let them be talented. Allow them to be talented. So many times we hire these round pegs and we want to put them in square holes, right? And it just does not work that way.
Since you're in the radio business, and this is now, again, I've been retired for 15 years, so I'm working with a local radio station, and he wants me to give giveaways, okay? And I say, yeah, I'm all for it, and be the third caller to get a free large pizza at Pizza Hut. And I told him, I says, I want the late hours. I want the late hours because I want to grow my late night business, because I wanted to make it more profitable for the people to stay out that late. Because, and he said, sorry, Bill, there's nobody there at the studio. The disc jockeys go home at midnight or whatever, and it's all programmed in there.
Pre-op, yeah.
Pre-op program. I went, you mean? And he goes, yeah, if you listen, it says 20 minutes after the hour, but they don't say which hour.
Yeah.
I went, holy mackerel. And the DJ's all...
So what year was that?
Well, it was obviously, I retired in 07, so probably 05, 04.
So you came here in 96.
Yeah.
I was the gentleman that put Wind FM on the air in 95
Okay.
in Ocala, and then 96 here. We were live around the clock, by the way.
Oh, sorry.
But so our careers here in Gainesville kind of coincided as our lives have.
Yeah. Speaking of the radio station, there was a corporate guy in Atlanta that gave me marketing advice, and Atlanta bought the TV media, and they sometimes bought the radio media, and I did the local print or whatever. And I told him I wanted to be on XYZ station, which was a jazz station. I said, I really like that. He says, Bill, he says, you're not your customer base. And he goes, your customer base is 18 to 35. You're friggin' 50. And I went, oh, yeah, you're right.
That was always something that was tough to get business owners to realize that.
Yeah. And I went, you're right.
And now I'll tell you the other side of the fence was when somebody came to my station, I wouldn't say mine, because we would actually tell people not to. But if they loved our station and they wanted to buy advertising on our station, but their product did not coincide with our audience, many radio stations would take your money anyways.
Yeah. You told them.
I would say there's a better place to invest your money over there.
Right.
If we have an event coming on or something else that you want to get involved in, let's do that.
Right.
Because, being in my mid-40s at that time and having a classic rock radio station, a rock radio station in town that was adult rock, not UF.
Right,
not,
yeah.
104 or whatever it was at the time.
103.7,
103.7. RUF, is that what it was?
I think so, yeah.
A lot of my friends and the people that I ran with, played golf with, went to Silver Springs with, whatever, was in Rotary with, they wanted to advertise on my radio station. And it was like, but your product isn't geared to what we do.
Right.
I don't care. I want to spend money with you. I want to hear my name on your radio station.
In Korea, at the time I was there, and again, I was in Asia from 91 to 96. Actually, I came here in 99. I was 96 to 99 in Chattanooga. I came here in 99, sold in 07. But when I was in Korea, we were the largest broadcaster of TV. And the Koreans did a great thing. The first 3 seconds of every ad was the same small jingle. And they turned the logo from the U.S. branded logo to the Korean logo for Pizza Hut. And then the last 5 seconds was the same thing. And so you always knew it was a Pizza Hut commercial. It's Pizza Hut's coming on and Pizza Hut's done. And it was really well done. But because of the Korean broadcast network, we were actually required as part of our deal to also advertise on radio because it was one of the local laws there. And when I got to Korea, it was the first time I ever had a union. I had the store managers in a union. And that was an interesting few years. Not only am I dealing with a different language, but I'm dealing with a union that we didn't ever have at Pizza Hut. Now I was,
those are tough decisions to make
yeah.
when you're spending that. You want your advertising to bring you a return on your investment, and we always in the radio business, and couponing was always important.
Right.
So you always had that coupon. People look for the coupons come in, and we conditioned people to do that. We conditioned them to do that. Yet, like television, it might be 16, 17 hours. You saw the ad, and then before you're actually going to go to a Pizza Hut.
Yeah. There was how many times you needed to see it before you.
McDonald's taught me that. I got to spend a lot of time. I had a friend that owned a number of McDonald's in Michigan, so I got to sit in a lot of his meetings and different things that he went through training. And McDonald's used radio so well.
Yeah.
Because when somebody leaves their office and they're driving to go to lunch, McDonald's had an opportunity to make you turn into their restaurant and not somebody else's.
Yeah, well, Pizza Hut knew that at 4 o'clock, the average wife doesn't know what's on for dinner. At 4 o'clock, and if you can, that's why you had to advertise at those day parts to get the woman who's making the decision.
Yeah. Intrusive.
You got to let them say, okay, order pizza, get pizza delivery, whatever, get it picked up on your way home from preschool or work or wherever you're coming from. But so that was one of the things that we had to do. But that wasn't really a lot of focus. I mean, mainly my focus was always about taking care of the team members. I mean, I had 200 people that worked under my leadership. Every 2 weeks we had to produce them a paycheck, and I wanted to give them the opportunity for growth and development. And that's another thing that I did that was very successful, that was called the Up and Out program. I really worked hard to get people under me promoted. And when I was in San Diego, and there was a term that they said is America's finest city, and if you knew the living conditions of San Diego versus San Francisco or Los Angeles, it was so much nicer, it was much more open, it was much cheaper. But I was the feeder group for store area managers moving into the Los Angeles market, moving into a couple of them moved into Seattle, and so I always found that if people seen that and they seen you producing people, getting them to grow into the organization that they wanted to become, and they wanted to bring their friends in, and so a lot of people would hang on to their good people. I'm trying to move them on.
We were the same way. That's how we cultivated talent. We were always in either small markets or medium-sized markets, where people that really wanted to be successful broadcasters as disc jockeys. Let's just take it from that standpoint. That's not where they were going to make $17,000 a year for you. We didn't. They didn't make any money. But we earned a reputation of developing talent and helping them get to key places like, the Twin Cities in Minnesota doing morning show. We had our midday lady from Wind FM went to there. The lady that followed her went to Jacksonville to work with that comedy team that was always I can't remember their name. But that was developing talent.
Developing talent.
We're going to work with you. You're going to get better, and then we're going to help you find someplace, to get your career forward. And so we always had a better sound on the air than a lot of other people, because we didn't. I hate to say it, but we didn't want the person that just wanted to show up every day and.
There's a lot of people like that.
A year for the rest of their life.
Most people just want to show up and do what they can and go home. I mean, how
would you like to be living in the COVID world now and running restaurants?
I don't think I could live in the cell phone world. I really, and I would tell you that my most successful managers really manage what I would call the peak hours. And on Friday nights, we had people coming in and coming going. And even if you staggered them in and staggered them out, sometimes there's a lot of people there, and you got to keep them engaged. And so and I can think of Angela particularly, she was really good at moving people in and moving people out. And so keeping people engaged and people working. And now, because of these cell phones, they're so distracted by the beeps and the blurbs and whatever they get, the notifications, that they have to pull them out of their pockets or their purse, or they walk around with them in their hands. I would injure somebody because they're not engaged in my business, taking care of my customers, because they're checking on their Facebook page. I would have trouble with that. And I was a guest at a high school, and I would go 2 or 3 times a year to a high school, and that guy was really good at cell phones down. He would make them put them under the chair, okay?
Turn them off.
Because he was so good at that, he got wind of another teacher at a different high school that wanted me to come, and I went to a different high school, as East Side High, and the teacher was really happy to have me because he'd heard from this other guy, and I told him I couldn't come back because I couldn't get his class focused. They were talking on the phone in the class, not just texting, they were talking. And yeah, so I give you another cell phone story. Kelton's brother, Stephen, was a Marine. He's subsequently out of the Marine, and I can't tell you how Kelton and I both went to his graduation at, where was it, Kelton? Paris Island. So Kelton's brother comes to my house for Thanksgiving. He brings another Marine from California. I go in there to wake them up, and they're both laying there with their cell phone on their chest. Okay? They're sleeping with the damn thing. Okay? Yeah. They went to sleep with it. Yeah. Well,
as an instructor,
right.
As an instructor, when I see people on the phone in my classes, can't you focus for just a couple of hours here? That's so disrespectful.
Right. Well, Bob, I'll give you an example, 2 examples. Okay. I haven't told you, but I consider myself a 7 Habits facilitator. I did training for 3 days in Korea, of all places, and I've done follow-up training in Chattanooga. So I'm in this program called the Guardian Ad Litem, and the Guardian Ad Litem is court-appointed child advocate that takes care of kids in the foster care business. That's how I got hooked up with Kelton here, okay? And so they have circuit directors. So the state has counties, but they also have a circuit where there's a circuit judge, and let's say there's 30 of them, okay, or whatever. And so I was invited to Tallahassee to do a 1-day 7 Habits facilitating class for the circuit directors for the Guardian Ad Litem program. And so the guy in charge in Tallahassee was going to be there as well, and all his direct reports. And so at the beginning of the class, I passed around his basket to collect all the phones. And when I got to the guy in charge, the state guy, he told me that he was going to be in and out of the meeting, that he needed his phone. And I said, Alan, you're either in or you're out. Yeah. And he looked at me like I was speaking Greek, and I said, I'm sorry, Alan, but I am really, really easily distracted. And if you're text messaging, I don't think you're paying attention. And I want your focus, because I want to feel valued, and I want you to get value out of what I'm going to deliver. And he finally gave me his phone. But part of that was, and I mentioned this guy, David Novak, and I tell your audience about his podcast, How Leaders Lead. When David Novak, he team taught with his HR guy a program that he called High Impact Coaching. And he really seen us at Pizza Hut as where we're umpires we're telling people what's wrong, balls and strikes, and that's pretty easy to do. But coaching's a lot harder. And so they put together this program that him and his management team developed, a 3-day program called High Impact Coaching, and he's going to team teach it 2 levels below. So my boss reported to him. So I'm 2 levels below him or whatever. And I thought for sure that he was going to come into the meeting and end the meetings and pop in every now and then. Now he's running 3,000 Pizza Huts that are being robbed and burned. And he stayed in that class the entire time and focused on the people in that room. And I'm thinking, if this guy's running 3,000 restaurants can do it, anybody can do it.
Yep. That's why he's there.
Yeah.
And that's why he's running 3,000.
Yeah, he stayed focused. He was what our Ram Dass said, be here now. I mean, he was there with the people, and his whole deal was to empower people. And then his subsequent class, a couple years later, was called Taking Others With You. And he wrote a book on it about how to grow up the organization, but to bring people along, okay? And he stayed focused. He was involved. And then we went bowling, and he bowled at each different alley with each different person. We went to Benihana's, and Benihana's, they got the teppanyaki. He created a friggin' egg fight trying to throw an egg onto the chef's hat, okay? And I mean, he just engaged with the people. Okay, engaged.
It is all about people.
It's all, and the same guy, okay, brag about David, okay. He gave an award called a Cheesehead from Wisconsin, or not Wisconsin, Green Bay, okay. Green Bay's got the Cheeseheads, and he's the big cheese at Pizza Hut. So he gave this award away, and I was number 9. And so I got number 9, and he writes a note on number 9. He gives you a Cheesehead, but then he takes a picture with you and the Cheesehead. And later on, a week later, you get the picture framed with the quote that was on the Cheesehead. A copy of that goes in his office, and his office did not have the pictures with him and ex-presidents, the pictures with congressmen. It was with people that won the Cheesehead. And when he ran out of wall space, he put it on the ceiling. When he ran out of ceiling space, it went out his hallway. It's all about people, taking people with you, okay? And that was my whole deal, is that how can I serve those people that are serving our customers? And it can be the smallest thing. This guy down the street in Archer Road, we no longer have sauce in a can. It comes in a big, thick plastic bag. And it's safer because it's lighter. Cans, when you open them, they were always cutting people. When you threw it away, you had to crush it. So, but we got this special knife to cut the plastic bags with that doesn't cut you, okay? It's a hidden. And the guy runs out of these little knives, and 2 drivers get in a fight over the little knife. And the shift manager doesn't handle it right, so I have to fire the shift manager and 2 drivers because the store manager didn't have the tool enough to go around to where somebody was fighting over the one that was left. And the tool cost 79 cents. And I said, you got to have 10 of these
4
things.
people lost their jobs.
Yeah, over a 79-cent
You
tool.
probably lost some revenue because it takes time to get people up to speed
well,
where they were.
Yeah, Pizza Hut did an analysis. It cost $500 to hire a new person, given the downtime, the training time. And so I was always about retention. And I wanted to segue here for your story about Rotary. Every time in Rotary...
We have 48 seconds to go in this program.
Okay, we're done with that.
We're going to have to bring you back again.
Well, okay. But anyways, I really focused on recognition at Rotary. And while recognition is something I can talk about forever, because nobody gets enough recognition. Nobody. And the guys who win the $1 million trophies golfing the best thing they could have gotten was a letter from Arnold Palmer being recognized.
Yeah, that's what was most important to them.
Yes, a letter from Arnold Palmer. All right.
Bill, I appreciate your time here today. This is great. We will schedule this again and
okay.
come back and do it again. Pizza Bill, coming to you live from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. This is Motivation U, the podcast.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.